Can God make a rock so big that even He can't lift it? Well, the answer is no, but in this video, I'm going to help you understand why this really isn't a problem for the Christian conception of God. Hey, what's up everyone? It's your Apologetics guy, Mikkel, coming to you here from Bodega Bay on the coast of Northern California. But it's a little bit noisy here, so let's go somewhere a little more quiet so we can talk. So can God make a rock so big that even He couldn't lift it? This is what philosophers call the stone paradox, and it tries to pit God's creative power against His lifting power. So it says, if God can't create a rock of a certain size, then He's not all-powerful. If God can't lift a certain rock, then He's not all-powerful either. And so the skeptic's point is that the whole concept of an all-powerful creator God just doesn't make any logical sense at all. But here's what skeptics miss. What does it actually mean to be all-powerful? See, the stone paradox is based on a bad understanding of what it means to be all-powerful. Because God being all-powerful doesn't mean that God can do absolutely anything and everything, because that's the misunderstanding that actually leads us to the paradox. But the Bible says God can't lie, for example.
Titus 1 says, God cannot lie. I go to Hebrews chapter 6, verse 18 says, it is impossible for God to lie.
So there's one thing that the Bible says God can't do. And so there's really nothing illogical about saying that God's all-powerful, but that there are some things that God can't do. Like the Bible says God can't lie. God also couldn't make a square circle or create a world in which there was no creator God and then He didn't exist. I mean, that would be what philosophers call something that's logically incoherent. God can do all things that are possible to do, things that are consistent with His nature. But here's what it seems like few people talk about when it comes to this challenge to the logical coherence of the idea of an all-powerful God. What's it mean to be a rock? I was picking up rocks at Bodega Bay, and rocks come in all shapes and sizes. You've got little pebbles, you've got regular rocks, you've got huge boulders, huge rocks. But what nobody talks about is what it means to be a rock. Because all rocks have to be limited in size. They can't take up all the space in the entire universe. Imagine that this square represents all the physical space in the entire universe. You could have a small stone, but a rock has to have a part where there's a rock and then there's no rock. It's a finite physical object, so there has to be this line of demarcation where there is a rock and then there's no rock. And no matter how big the rock gets, it has to be something smaller than all the space in the entire universe. Again, there has to be a part where there's a rock and then there's no rock. And no matter how big or heavy it is, it has to be finite. It has to have a limit to it. That's what it means to be a rock. God could keep making bigger and bigger and bigger rocks, but there is no such thing as an infinite rock. I like how C.S. Lewis says this: if it is self-contradictory, it is absolutely impossible. God's omnipotence means power to do all that is intrinsically possible. You may attribute miracles to Him, but not nonsense. All things are possible with God. The intrinsic impossibilities are not things, but they are non-entities. So a rock that God can't lift is one of these non-entities. It's a logically impossible state of affairs. It's not really a thing at all. It's just two words jammed together, and there's actually no referent for such a thing. Now, if something's impossible, it's not a matter of having more power. The impossible thing isn't really a thing at all. And so it's the stone paradox that is actually meaningless. The stone paradox doesn't show that the concept of God is incoherent. In fact, it's the concept of an infinite rock that is what's actually logically incoherent. And so the stone paradox itself doesn't make any sense to ask, because for every rock that God can make, He could always make a bigger one. and he can lift all rocks as long as there's physical space in the universe to lift a rock from point A to point B. I'm your apologetics guy, Dr. Mikel Del Rosario. I'll see you in the next video. Until next time, keep faith.